I know, like,
Which way do I face? What am I looking at? Oh, here. That's what I'm looking at.
Oh, I just blurred you out. Oh, man, I broke it.
oh no!
I broke it.
How'd you move too fast, John? All right. Welcome to Minimum Effort, Moderate Effort Edition. We are here with the legend himself, John Jacques.
John Jacques. Boo, 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 boo.
Boom, 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 bang, 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 boom. I'm here with my co-host, also, Mr. Minkin or something, or
Minkin, Mr. Minkin. Mr. Minkin's
Mankin.
Yeah, Mr. Minkin's good. Yeah.
And you know, I think that we were all shocked when we heard about Akebono passing. You know, like, some people had a sixth sense about it. Like, Romeo started asking about him in our Oyakata chat, and John was like, you gave us some info. Can you talk about a little bit of what of the man that was Akebono?
Yeah, I certainly can. I got to know him pretty well, a lot more than most people did. You know, we live in Hawaii. We both lived on the windward side of the island of Oahu. And our high schools were rival high schools in football and wrestling and basketball. So we got to see a little bit of him as a young guy. I think I first saw him when he was about a 10th grader. And we were having a wrestling scrimmage, a preseason scrimmage with their high school. He went to Kaiser High School, and I worked at Kahuku High School. And we had a joint practice session, and I got to see him for the first time. And big, tall kid, you know, looked kind of scary, but we had a couple of gorillas the same age. They were sophomores. And I think his height was not real good for grappling wrestling, you know, for high school style wrestling at 6'3", 6'4", and just a sophomore. I mean, he's just a kid kind of figuring out what to do with that big body. But, you know, he was a good kid and a nice kid and paid attention, and we kind of coached him a little bit. And by the senior year, he realized that wrestling was not where he belonged. He went out for the basketball team, and like his senior year, I think it was like 6'5" or 6'6", and in Hawaii, that's pretty tall for a basketball kid in Hawaii basketball. We have a lot of Filipinos and Japanese at 5'6", 5'8" stuff. So at his height, he was kind of like the Wilt Chamberlain on the court. He can play pretty tough ball, great defense. And I didn't hear much more about him, and he went off and played college ball for a couple of years at one of the JCs in Honolulu, and did pretty good. But he just decided, like, you know, he was thinking about UH, but it just wasn't for him. So he wasn't doing much. And then what I know is that one of our senior members, a guy we called Uncle Larry, he's found a whole lot of the Hawaii boys that went over to Japan and did good. Jesse calls him his uncle. I don't think they're officially uncle and whatever, but Jesse called him Uncle Larry, and everybody just started calling him Uncle Larry. Good guy. And he gave me a call one day. We'd already sent a few guys over, Luigi and a bunch of others that weren't quite so successful. And he said, John, I was at a funeral. And he said, this gigantic kid, Hawaiian boy, came walking into the funeral. He said, 6'7" and a piece. He said, and huge, like 340 pounds. He said, I think this kid could be somebody in Japan. I said, oh, that sounds interesting. So he said, I'm going to give Jesse a call. He said, but could you do me a favor and just kind of find out what you know about him? So he gave me the name and stuff, and I did not remember the name from a sophomore, kid in a scrimmage when they were like 80 boys scrimmaging. But when I talked to the coach, I talked to his wrestling coach and the athletic director. He became the athletic director at that school. I gave him a call. I just said, hey, we're interested in one of your alumni that people are thinking about maybe giving a shot in Japan. Can you tell me a little bit about him so I can tell folks? He goes, oh, and I gave him the name. He goes, oh yeah. He said, you probably met him. He said he wrestled with you guys as sophomores. He said that was a really tall kid. I go, oh yeah, I remember. Okay, I didn't put the name to the face or whatever. I didn't even see the face, but it just wasn't clicking. And and he said, no, he's a good kid. He's a tough kid. And like a lot of our boys, grew up poor, kind of in a rough life and a tough little community he grew up in and stuff. But he said, no, he's a good guy. He's not one of our gangster bad guys. He's got a heart of gold, and his work ethic maybe could use a little bit of work, but he's a good guy. So I told that to Uncle Larry. I said, Uncle Larry, signals look pretty good, and he's tall and not much of a worker. But I know when those guys get to Japan, they have no choice. Once you're in Japan in the dojo and pro sumo, you become a worker real fast, or you get sent home immediately. So we just said, yeah, give it a shot. And I know that he hung out there for a year or two, and Takayama was kind of the guy that brought him over, and Jesse from Maui. And Jesse had a couple of my other high school boys in his stable. He said, he said, there's a big kid, and he said he's got potential, but he's just not firing off. I said, yeah, that's what we heard. And within 6 months, he just learned. I guess Jesse said something to the fact, maybe you want to get serious about this game, or do you want to go home? And all of a sudden he realized he better buckle down. And within 6 months, he just started this kind of meteoric rise up from Sandame to Makushita, and kind of quick through Makushita and on up into Joryo, Sekitori, on up into the big league. And with his size, and once he really got it down, there was kind of no stopping him in his race to the top. And Konishiki got so close to being a Yokozuna, and just for a variety of subjective reasons, not numerical but subjective reasons, didn't make it. So when Akebono got to that same door and trying to get through that door, people knew that the world is watching you. Are you guys going to let this guy that has the numbers again get through, or are you going to block him? And boom, Chad was in there, and turned out to be a wonderful, great Yokozuna. So, that's his
and when he became Yokozuna, what was it like being in Hawaii at that time?
What did you last hear?
We asked how Hawaii reacted to him becoming Yokozuna, and then we didn't hear.
And I gave you three paragraphs.
we missed it all.
Every single bit.
Okay, I can redo that, but I have been frozen the entire time. I'm looking at my face here.
Yeah.
I know.
Maybe.
Nope. We can't see you, but we can still hear you, which is oh,
you moved a little bit.
Yeah.
Well, you're moving now. You're moving now. Okay.
All right. Well, I don't know what's happening, but shall we just start there? Where how Hawaii reacted? So I went back just to say that Hawaii has always loved sumo, starting from the late 1800s when our immigrants came over from Japan to work the ag fields, and eventually they started doing sumo just because they missed home, and it was only in the Japanese community. And then World War II hit, and sumo and everything Japanese just disappeared completely for about 10 years. It came back kind of small, and then one summer the top 40 pros from Japan came to Hawaii on the Junyo, and in that Junyo they brought this young big Hawaii boy over from Maui to the Oahu to see the big guys, just go watch them and see them. And one of the Oyakatas was sitting in the chair, a former Yokozuna, looked at him, called him over and just said, hey boy, come here, I want to talk to you. We got a translator. and asked him, what's he doing? He said, well, I do sumo. And he talked to his coaches afterward. The coaches told the guy that, yeah, he's a tough kid, but he's still learning sumo. The guy said, I want to bring you to Japan. So Jesse went home to Maui excited, like, Mom, I want to go to Japan. She said, no way, you're not going. He convinced her that he wanted to try. I said, I'll try 1 year, and if I'm not making money, I'll come home. Well, it took about 5 to make money, but he became successful. And as soon as he became successful, all of a sudden, a lot of Hawaii just lit up about Takamiyama in Japan. And all of a sudden, he's Juryo, and now he's Makauchi, and now he's up to the Sanyaku, Komusubi, Sekiwaki. He won the Grand Championship. The Emperor's got, oh my God. And Hawaii started to go crazy. And then it kind of petered off with it. He continued his career, and Jesse was always incredibly popular. He's just such a charming guy, in addition to being a monster in the doyo. But when Kunishiki went over and Kunishiki started rising up, they went, oh, it was like 10 years, 15 years later, they went, oh, we got another one. And the media and everybody got excited. And then when he didn't quite make Yokozuna, a lot of people were going like, oh man, Hawaiians always get screwed over. And they really thought it was like a racist kind of thing. And a lot of people in Hawaii got pretty angry at sumo and just like, well, this is not legit or something. So when Akebono came, we all got excited again. And wow, when Akebono made Yokozuna, Hawaii just went berserk. The Japanese community and every community, the Filipinos, the Caucasians, it didn't matter. The Samoan, we were all just celebrating, going wild, like, oh my God, we got a Yokozuna out of Hawaii. It's just the coolest. And shortly thereafter, along comes Musashi Maru and does the same freaking thing. But when Akebono made it, it was probably the biggest explosion of excitement because there was that bad feeling about sumo a little bit when Kunishiki didn't quite make it. And whether it was right or wrong call, I'm not going to argue, but the feeling in Hawaii was kind of like, oh man. And that lasted for quite a while. I mean, it hung around and people, So when Akebono made it through the glass door, the glass ceiling, whatever you call it, and got inside the pearly gates of Yokozuna, wow. Everybody went, oh, okay, we can love Japan again, and we certainly love Akebono. And that's when I was in my kind of heyday, getting kids in, and just everything was about Akebono. Every newspaper, every magazine, I think every daily news for months and months and months and months always had an Akebono story to tell there because people are going to Japan and coming back.
Speaking of Akebono, I went on your Facebook and you have a beautiful archive of first of all, beautiful photos of Hawaii, which as I was looking through things, I was like, I really need to go back.
Yeah, come on over,
because it's gorgeous. It's gorgeous. But then also you have like things that should be in history books, right? And I'm going to show a couple, and if you can just tell us a little bit about the photo, just to give us context on where this came from.
Sure. Okay. This is when we brought our Kuhuko high school boys to Japan. And in the back, you can see one of the guys just bombing our picture. But the guy on the left is Sione Pelotu. And he came as my assistant coach, or my additional coach. And of course, Akebono in the middle and myself on the right-hand side of the picture I'm looking at here. And we were in Japan for 20 days. I had 20 high school boys, sophomores, juniors, and seniors, to challenge all of the Japan boys in like 12 different cities. And this was taken the same time, about maybe 5 minutes earlier or later. But we're back in the Shitaku Bay of the Kokugikan. So Akebono invited us all to come to the Kokugikan, and made sure Jesse and he made sure we all got in free. And once we were in there, these are like 12 or 14 of the high school boys. We all wore our shirts to the tournament that day. We wanted to kind of make a presence known. And Chad just said, "You guys got to come back into the Shitaku Bay." Nobody gets to Shitaku Bay unless you're a millionaire donor to these guys or you're some kind of family connection. But Polynesians stick together. So all these boys, I see about 1 or 2 Caucasian boys there. I see Samoans, I see Tongans, I see Hawaiians. It's got the whole gamut of them. And sometimes in Hawaii, they had issues with each other. But as soon as they're on a team together, it's the football or basketball or wrestling or volleyball or sumo team, all of a sudden they're brothers and they're inseparable. Just like Akebono was Hawaiian and Musashi Maru was Samoan and
Yeah.
Konishiki is Samoan, and theoretically those guys might not be best of buddies in the real world. But man, when you're in Japan and there's another Polynesian with you, you're brothers. So that was Chad just kind of hanging out with the guys, and he just had so much fun with our kids. We went to his stable. We stayed at Zumazaki Bay for the first 3 days in Japan to get our kids a little bit more training in the dirt doyos that they have over there. And Jesse and Chad and a bunch of guys just wanted to see them and just kind of get adjusted to Japan. And then we headed out. We visited a bunch of different cities to compete against their high school all-stars. The first night we got in there, Chad, I asked Jesse, I said, can the boys go upstairs and see Akebono in his room? He goes, oh, I said, Chad doesn't really like anybody going up to his room. That's where he gets away from everybody, you know, because media, when you're the Yokozuna, I mean, you're like Tiger Woods and Michael in Japan, incessant. You know, you think the Brits hound people with their paparazzi. No, man, the sumo guys, the upper echelon in Japan, they can't go anywhere, any time of day or night without a dozen cameras on him. So he said, no, he likes to be up there. About 5 minutes later, Chad goes, hey, all you Google kids, get up in my goddamn room, hurry up. And he calls upstairs, and you hear and he goes, and no coaches. He wouldn't let me in, so he only come up in his room. He said, no, I want the kids. Because he just knew that the kids are cool, and he, you know, he was a schoolboy once himself in Hawaii. And he competed against Kahuku High School, so he got to bring a bunch of young Kahuku boys and kind of dominate. And they didn't come down to about 3 in the morning. And myself and the other coach were sitting there like waiting. You know, I got to give these kids instructions about how you sleep with the futon. They've never done this before, and this is our first night there. And they didn't come, so we're just exhausted and we're jet lagged. And these kids come down and they were, I think Chad sent out about Skibito out to the different stores and groceries or whatever about 10 times, came back with McDonald's burgers and Japanese foods and sodas and popcorn and ice cream and candies. And they just played video games and hung out with Chad and just laid on them and just he laid on them. And they just local kids, local Polynesians just hanging out and no Yokozuna bullshit, none of that stuff. The kids told me the next one, they said, like, wow, we thought he was gonna be like all this high muckety mucka kind of guy. He's just like one of us, man. He just likes talking pigeon and no way, and talking smack at us, insulting our moms, or we insult his mom, and just what kids will do. So I mean, that's the other side of the Yokozuna. Now the next morning, 2 of the boys are captains. And I've told the story before, but they came down at 3 in the morning, and after we kind of told them how to set their beds up and say, guys got to get up at 6, we got practice. And they grumbled, but they went. And the 2 guys came over and they said, Coach, we thought he was going to be like some tough guy. He's not tough, man. He's just like lying around on a thing. We feel his arms. He's like soft. He goes, he says, I think I can bench press more than him. I go, oh, okay, you know. And we had some tough boys. I mean, our captain he ended up playing 4 years at UCLA. I forget what it was. Mailo. And he was like 6'3" and 320 and a beast. I mean, had like a 32-inch waist and a 90-inch chest. I mean, a monster of a kid. So he was a tough guy, and he beat up everybody in town if he had to. I mean, he was a nice kid. He didn't, but he could have. And he's just saying, well, I don't think, you know, maybe I go, well, we'll see tomorrow. And I said, well, we'll see. Go to sleep, get up in the morning. So they're practicing with the Jonakuchi and Joni Don and some of the Sandan guys the next morning, like 6:30, 7:30. They're getting tired, and they go, where's Chad? I go, well, he don't come down like 9 o'clock. They go, oh man, we're tired. Whatever. So, guys, you think I can get a match with them? I go, I don't know. I said, we'll see. I'm not going to call what the Yokozuna is going to do. All of a sudden, the shoji, about 9 or so, the shoji screen door slides open, and Chad just stands there in his mawashi, all 6'7", 6'8" of them, 425 pounds, mawashi, legs that go up about 12 feet high, and then he starts growing from there. And they just go, oh, coach, like you can see, they were like, they just started sagging. And he starts to do shko, and his foot literally, I think his foot was probably 10 feet above the ground when he lifted up, boom! And you could almost feel the doyo shake. I mean, honestly, it was really impressive. I go, this is a great, and Chad was just doing what he does every morning. And he hits the tempo pole, bang, and just echoing out through the stable. and they just, and all of a sudden, all my boys, I look back behind me, and they're all back in the one corner at the opposite, as far away from me as they could get. Now they're seeing the Yokozuna Akebono, and not the good old Hawaiian brother Akebono.
Right.
The difference, and that's what Chad could do. He had this magic ability that when he stepped out of the dojo, and you were a decent kind of person, it didn't matter what coach. He just loved people. He loved to play. He loved to talk. He liked to sing stories. He liked to drink beer. He just liked to hang out. I mean, the four of us could go to a bar with Chad, and we would have an absolute blast. And he wouldn't pull rank on us at all. We would just have a whole much fun. And he would hug you at the end of the, and you'd go home thinking, "Oh my God, it's my buddy." And then you go meet him the next day in the dojo, like, he ain't your buddy. Until he steps out. And that's why Japan loved him, because that's what sumo is supposed to be. Is when you step inside that dojo, Japanese love things that go pop and disappear. So they want to see, when you get into sumo, they don't want to see a 3-minute long dragged out, grab this, twist that, turn that way. They just want to see somebody hit, boom, boom, and crash out. They love hanabi, fireworks, because it goes up in the sky and goes and it's gone. They love the cherry blossom, because all of a sudden, a certain time in the springtime, it goes pop, and then they fall off. They love those things. To them, that's the cycle of life. And that's what sumo is. Because like human beings, I mean, we think it's long. I'm 80 years old now. I'm just going, shit, man. I popped like about 8 hours ago out of my mama as this little baby. And here I am, I'm 80, and like I'm about to go join her up in wherever where I'm in, I don't know. But just like, wow, age lets you see that temporariness of life, and that's what the Japanese they're all about, that stuff. So they love Chad because he could just pop and turn it on, but then he could turn it off, and he could just be this nice gentle guy and stuff. But when they got in the dojo, boom, and that's what they, at the end of a sumo match, when the two wrestlers bow, and the thing I most love about sumo is that I've been taught this 1,000 times. You should not be able to tell by their demeanor who's the winner and who's the loser. They should look exactly the same. Now, it's really hard not to put a smile on your face if it's the national championship and you just won it. But by Japan standards, dude, no. Yeah. You got to hold that till you're back in the locker room, or you're back at home, or in your car, or your bus, or back at the stable, because it's kind of an insult to your opponent to go, "Oh, I got it," and it's hard not to. Or if you don't get it, you train for 4 years, you fight at the national championship. Oh man, my foot slipped on the twat and I could have had him. It's really hard not to kick the dirt or cry, or just beat your chest or something. No, the real sumo guy, the guy that really understands the sport, is going to go, "Hush." No, I'll go in the locker room and punch them, maybe. I don't know. But I don't do it to embarrass my coach,
right?
To embarrass my opponent, to embarrass the sport, my family, my country. Just so, and Chad had that ability to just that grace that comes in. Most monsters have that grace. You meet the really badass, toughest female tennis player, the baddest volleyballer, the whatever. They're not all in your face. They're pretty chill people.
Yeah.
It's the wannabes that are stalking around and stomping out and acting and just throwing their little freaking drama scenes, and that's why they loved Akebono, because he didn't bring drama. He just brought power, and then he brought a lot of aloha and charm.
Speaking of the charm and the magic that he brought with him, I'm always fascinated to see what athletes do in their postseason, right? So
yeah.
after retirement, he did a whole lot of different things, right? And he did one thing that I think most people forget about, but he did a live demonstration of sumo, and it wasn't the best sumo, but it showed like it from beginning to end what sumo can be. And he did it at the WWE WrestleMania, and I think that it was pretty magical. This is it.
Oh, okay. I've seen this. Yeah.
So like the fact that he's actually in their traditional, right, and he has the big show being traditional. They have the gyoji, and it's a scripted thing, but in there you see sapari, you see you see Dashinage, Kotanage, like you see a lot of different stuff, right?
Yeah.
And then at the end, he ends up winning, and it's, you know, it's a moment where I started watching sumo on ESPN with the Hawaiians, and when I saw this, I was like, wow, like there's still like spirit and things I can learn. Did you happen to see this, or did this affect you in any way?
I saw parts of this. I haven't seen the entire clip, but I saw parts of it within 6 months to a year after it first happened, and that was quite a while ago, I think.
Yeah.
What was that, like 10 or 15 years ago at least?
Somewhere along those lines. I believe it was 07, 08, somewhere in there.
Almost, 15 years ago.
Yeah. How old are you, JJ?
Oh, me? I am 30,
Yeah, I'm kidding. You said you're
38,
probably
39,
young.
somewhere in there. I'm not young. I am old.
Older.
I gotta bite my tongue, you know, like I gotta put respect where respect is due.
But Chad did that to show the people in WWE a little bit of where he came from, and just let them understand a little bit of what sumo is. And that was not received well by everybody in the sumo world.
Right.
You know, some people went, why is the Yokozuna doing that at a WWE event? And but other people said, you know, he's still teaching sumo. He's still demonstrating what it's all about. He's not making fun of it. He's not dancing around being a fool about it. He's trying to show them, this is where I came from. That this is what got me to where I am now. So it was a mixed reaction, but you know, in Hawaii, we love anything he did. So he could steal my hamburger and I still love him. Matter of fact, he did a number of times.
Speaking of the charm, this is another photo that I got from your Facebook, and I see like the brotherly love in this photo. If you could speak about this a little bit. Yeah,
this is not my photo. This was I think I found it in a magazine. I forget where I saw it, but it just spoke to me of it. And like I said, there's a big Hawaiian and a big Samoan and a big Samoan, and they all raised. Chad was really raised in his Hawaiian culture, and Penitani was totally raised. Musashi Wado was totally raised in his culture, and of course Koniski Saleva Atisanoi was raised in his Samoan culture. All of their moms and dads were hard driving, don't fun around kind of people with their kids. Koniski tells a story that I think he had like 7 brothers and 3 sisters, and they had like a little tiny 2-bedroom house. So the kids all slept out in the yard. The girls got to sleep inside because that's just Samoa really protects their women. But the boys from like 3 years old on up had to sleep outside under a blue tarp. Wind, rain, hell, luckily no snow, but I mean, stuff happens there. And they had to get up at 3 o'clock every morning in Koniski's family. And their dad was a stern Samoan pastor. And they had to do an hour of prayer from 3 to 4 every morning. Now, imagine you're in 3rd grade and you got to do that. It's tough. Musashi Wado, same thing. He grew up with a really tough family. When he was in high school trying to play football, his dad would take him out of practice because he had to go help build rock walls around the island, because that's what their job was. So from the age of like 6 or 7, he was carrying 100-pound stones and building rock walls. Wow. But you know, like you didn't say no or yes to your mom and dad. You just hired. You did what they did. And the same with Akebono. He was raised really tough, really strict. He had a Caucasian dad and a big Hawaiian mom. I think she was like 6'2" or so, and a big woman. And that's where he got his size from. But she tolerated no BS at all. And he told some stories like he would be swatted and she'd hit him so hard that he'd do like 3 somersaults before he hit the ground. But it just, you know, so they all grew up tough. And they got to Japan, and there's a really kind of just totally different society. But they could fit into sumo better than some kids that were raised kind of like mommy and daddy, helicopter parents, and would take you to soccer practice, and oh, you need another iPhone, here you go. No. So those guys don't make it in sumo. Even in amateur sumo in America, most of those guys don't do real well because they've just been a little bit too coddled. And sumo, if you really get down to like international podiums or professional sumo, it's kind of like pit bulls, dog eat dog. I mean, just no matter what you say about the lovely sport and it's so nice and bright and you can step out and be a gentleman, when you're in that dojo, you just have to be the nastiest, meanest dog in the pack. Or
Yeah.
you're not going to get the gold medal. Sorry, and a lot of American, I think, maybe don't understand that, or they understand it, but it's just not for them. And quickly, I think we need to be okay with that. Sumo can be for everybody. You go in there and you can just do your sko and your butskari and your suriashi and all your basic little training drills and stuff. And just love the hell out of it and get fitter and get better and go out afterwards with the guys and have a beer, the gals and have a beer, just the camaraderie, and then learn another sport and learn about Japanese culture and so forth. Perfectly wonderful. But when they have 8,000 videos of them doing their mawashis and stuff, and you go, oh, that's a bit much, isn't it? But that's what they're doing, so it's okay. But then you got the same people in the club that just come in there like, no, I don't want that. No, I don't want the picture. Put the camera away. I don't need that. How many score we got to do? 300? I'm ready, coach. I'm ready. Hey, I want to fight you. Now I want to fight you. Now I want to fight you. You both of you guys have good Japan experience watching sumo and seeing what's going on there. Look at the pros. Look at the top colleges. Look at the guys that are going for the goal. There ain't no fun around in there, dude. It's 100% business, and it's dog eat dog. I mean, they're charming. Step out the door, they can be charming, but they have that inner drive that just takes them.
They got that dog in them. They got that dog in them.
And these three guys that you just showed, that beautiful picture of them hanging out after practice, because you can tell all their yukatas are kind of hanging off their shoulders. So they probably just finished practice and they wrapped up, and he's still got his Musashi Mato's got his towel around him. I don't know what Sali Kuniski's wearing, but Chad's got his yukata down around his waist. So they probably just came out of the bath, or they're just going to the bath, and it's probably after practice or after. Although I see their hair is all pretty, they all three got their beautiful ochiomage. So maybe this was after the bath, and they're just hanging out. Maybe it was a hot summer day or something. I don't know. But look at the love there. I mean, it's there. And they're delighted with each other because they don't get to hang out a whole lot with each other. They tried whenever they could, but the life of a Yokozuna, the life of an Ozeki is so busy, and you're on the rise to get there. And then once you're there, you're just called 1,000 different ways, just interviews and meetings and signings and autographings and cutting ribbons to open stores and doing it. You just got to do it, because that's where your sponsorship comes from. They might make $500,000 a year in salary. They probably make $10 million a year in just under the table handings of money and commercials and so forth and so on. So you got to go where the bread is. I mean, you're in the sport because you like it, but you're also in the sport to make money for you and your family.
That's right. It's a job.
Chad supported his mom and dad and brothers and stuff forever, and all of his friends. He'd come home and just, like, oh man, Santa Claus came to town for some people, and like I said, no, don't think that way, guys. It just he just wants to share when he's home a little bit of his joy, the life he lives. Yep. Sale built a gigantic compound out on the Nanakuli coast, Kuniski, and built a big home for himself and his wife, and it had to be probably 3,000 square feet, 4,000 square feet of just luxury right on the coast, right on the water. I mean, you climb over his fence and you're into the ocean, and he would do that a lot. And he and his wife lived there in just big, open, spacious, beautiful rooms. And then he built another, looked like almost like a condominium with about 10 bedrooms and a couple of kitchens and about 8 bathrooms for his sisters and his brothers and their families. And they all were just like, he just came home and he spent his money on his family. And every time he came home, he would do these community things. He would order from the big shops in town, like a couple $100,000 worth of rice and meat and fish and staples and supplies and flashlights and batteries, whatever his community needed. He came from probably the poorest community on Oahu. Both he and Musashi Maru, Waianae and Nanakuli were just really hard scrabble places to be born and raised. Nobody had money. Nobody went to college. It just like It was tough life. And he just came home and just said, and he would just say, hey, come to my house. He would just drive around yelling out the car window, come to my house Saturday morning, 8 o'clock. They would show up and people would go home with wagons and carts and stuff just full of groceries. They didn't have cars to drive there. They would pull their car to a half a mile to get back home again, the old folks and the young folks. And in Japan, he goes and visits, and all these guys, Akebono was doing the same. They visit the senior homes whenever they get a chance. They go and visit like the tsunami victims and that terrible earthquake that happened and so on. So these guys, that's why they're so beloved in Japan, because they're not only grand champions and ozekis, but they just come from the heart and they live aloha. Even though they've been in Japan for 50 years, Takamiyama is one of the most beloved guys ever in Japan, and just because of their Polynesianness, their aloha spirit. So the Hawaii boys were something special. Now the Mongolians come over, and I like the way they fight and so on, but they don't quite have that aloha spirit. They're a little bit more about getting back home for the family and kind of taking care of themselves. And I'm not being rude about this, but just, we all know in America, we know the spirit of aloha. When you talk about you met a Hawaiian guy with the spirit of aloha, that means that guy would give you the shirt off his back if you didn't have one. It's like, I don't care. Here, take mine. I watched our kid when I first came to Kahupa school, where I grew up. If I had a hamburger and you didn't do it, you suffer. I'm eating. You're not. And that's your problem, not mine. You know why? I watch the kids go, you don't have a hamburger, they break it in half. And that kid says, oh, you don't have a, he breaks it in half again. So he eats a fourth, the other kid eats a fourth, the owner gets a half. They all have something to eat. Then they get on the bus and they're smiling and singing songs. And just I go, oh, wow. When I learned, I always tell the kids in Hawaii that they taught us more than we taught. I taught them math, they taught me life. Same with Japanese, it's just a difference. And Akebono, Kunishiki, Musashi Moro were born and raised with that. My mom and dad with the stick and the hug and the lay and the good side and the rough side of that kind of life. And so when they got to Japan, it was almost a natural fit that they would just be aggressive in the ring and be charming out of it. And Chad lived up to that.
I think that's magical. I can't imagine us finding a better place to end than that. He will be missed.
I have not specifically about Akebono, but I was just wondering because every time I talk to other people, I hear more about the Hawaiians or the Polynesians that didn't make it to like judo or makuuchi. There were a bunch, right?
Oh, a bunch. Probably 20, 25. I'm not sure of the number, but a whole lot. And they made it to. A lot of them made it into Makusa. Makusa was kind of like the real mark. Jurio, of course, sekitori means that you're on the payroll and you're making some, not NFL money, but you're making some pretty good money. You could support a family on a Jurio salary. On a Makusa salary, you couldn't. But when you're Jonakuchi, Jonidan, Sandan Mei, those three lower ranks, you're getting chump change. If you can get a Coke and a musubi, you're lucky. Yeah. I mean, and your life is just for shit. You're not going anywhere. All you're doing is hanging around the stable, cleaning and doing sentoku and just working for everybody else, keeping it right. And they do that on purpose because the kids get so frustrated and angry that I got to get out of this. So they'll train harder because as soon as they get to Makusa, life gets a little bit easier. And if they bump into Jordio, wow, man, now I get my chonmage, I get to do this, I get to do that, I get a lot more money, I can go out in the afternoon, I can have a girlfriend, I can have 4 girlfriends. So it's a different life. So that creates the hunger in them. But so a lot of the white guys got there, and only those big 3 are the ones we all know. There was another one that was really right up there, George Kalima. He just passed away about 3 years ago. Dear friend of mine. I cried when I heard that Georgie passed. But we got him into sumo when he got over there. And whenever I would go to Japan, the coach from Meiji Nakano High School and Meiji University was a dear friend of mine. And he would always say, John, who do you want to invite out with me? He said, I want to take you out. He said, get one of your sekitori to come with me. And I'd always say George, because George wasn't up in the Sanyaku. I said, I want George. And George was also like the coolest. He was just the most humble guy you could ever meet. And we probably went to 30 sushi dinners and all-you-can-eat steak dinners. I mean, we're not talking about chump change kind of places. We're talking like the top of the top of the top of the top, but probably $500 a head plates, stuff. But just do it. Come on. And he wouldn't drink much. He'd have like a sip of sake to be polite. Then I'll have a fresco or something like that. He just wouldn't do it. And I'd get all wasted on sake because they were, I'll have another. I'm like, oh. And George would sometimes carry me out, put me and we'd always have a limousine that would come and pick us up and take us back. But he made Makuuchi, and he was up there for 8 or 9 tournaments. And then he had some serious health issues that eventually took his life about 10 years later. So he had to retire. He just couldn't. He lost his stamina. He was sick. And he had a beautiful wife, and he married a girl from Japan that loves hula. And so they've opened up a halau, and they were selling Hawaiian hula instruments and music in Japan. And his son plays music in Japan. I mean, they brought aloha to Japan. Another one, but almost nobody's heard of him. It was Makuuchi. I mean, it's so amazing. We're talking about one little island, and when those guys went over, we had less than 1 million people, and all active at the same time. We had 2 Yokozunas, we had an Ozeki, we had a middle Makuuchi wrestler, 3 of the Sanyaku, 2 of the top of the Sanyaku period, from a tiny little place in Japan, a town of 1 million people. If they get one sekitori every 20 years, they celebrate them. You see the ladies in the arena holding up their flag for Yamato or whatever town they're from or something. Hawaii, this tiny little place, this little dot in the middle of the Pacific, and it had nothing to do with me, but I mean, just these big, tough kids that were raised like we talked about were able to find it. So I think my high school had probably 7 or 8 boys that went to pro sumo. Wayne Vieira, Taylor Wiley, Brian George. I mean, it goes on, a bunch of them. And the highest that they got was middle to very top of Makusta. But to make it in sumo, you not only have to be tough and charming, but you have to be lucky. And gallbladder. Wayne Vieira was going to make it to Jurio probably within another 3 tournaments, and his gallbladder ruptured, and he came home for emergency surgery, and his sumo career was over. He came back to amateurs a few years later, but not the man he was when he was a young 23-year-old bull on the run up to Sekitori status. Taylor Wiley was bad news bear, and he beat 4 of the guys that made it into Sanyaku like 3 years later. And his initial debut, he was just stomping people, and his knee got just blown out like 4 times. He came home for a major knee replacement, and now he's in a wheelchair and crutches and stuff. He's like 55 on him. So there's a lot of these guys that went there. The Kalama brother and the Percy Kapapa and John Filionga. I mean, so many of them. And those guys are all my friends. They were all younger than me, so I got to be a little bit of like tell people like, yeah, these are good guys or something. I would do a little bit of research and tell them. But it wasn't because of me at all. I just was another, out of 85 people that helped, I helped a tad, so I felt proud about it. But I'm just happy for them. Here's kids that don't have much of a future, and man, they get to go to Japan, and even if they don't make it, they get to spend 3 or 4 years in Japan. And the rest of their life, whenever they go to a party, they see their grandma. Oh, my sumo champion, I mean, it's a good life. So they all won, and they learned another lesson. They all came home and got jobs, and that didn't make it came home and got jobs in the tourist industry because they could speak pretty good Japanese. So at least you can say, this is the building, this is the temple, this is the hotel, whatever. So yeah, it was good. And we had a few boys go into collegiate sumo and get full scholarship, full rides. One family had 3 of them there, so we're proud of them all.
Nice.
But Akebono was probably the penultimate Hawaii sumotori over the years. He took it to the highest heights. And but you look at Fiamalo Penitani, Musashi Moto. He's the only one that stayed in the sumo world and opened stable. Chad realized, he said, he debated. He actually signed on to be there, and after a couple of months, he went, I still got to bow to people and stuff. And, I don't know. And he was just he loved to just have fun and play. And even if you're an Oyakata, you just can't have too much fun in Japan if you're in the sumo world, especially if you're a leader. You look at these guys. Oh, somebody went out and had drinks with the young kid. Oh, they're in trouble. Like, no, dude. So you step out somewhere, nobody cares what you do. I mean, you can't be crazy, but you know, you can be like you and me. You can just be a nice guy and have fun and do a little bit of kaloi, a little bit of bad things here and there. It's all good, you know. It washes under the. But you get up there with all the cameras on you. With Konishi, same thing. He got there and he realized he was kind of a little bit hoo-hoo, which is like a little bit upset, Hawaiian word, because he did not make Yokozuna, and he felt like, you know, I deserved it, but you know, he doesn't call the shot. And he has a talent for singing. He has a charming personality. Mm-hmm. He can play any musical instrument you can think of. He can dance. He can lead a parade. He can do anything you want him to do. And he just said, you know, I can stay in here and I have to bow to everybody for the rest of my life and make, you know, maybe $1 million a year. He said, I go out on my own and just, I can run around the country and just go help people and do crazy stuff. And just, I can sing and dance and chase my dream and come back to, I can go to Hawaii whenever I want. I don't have to wait for the, in between the Jungyo and I get 8 days to run home for, you know, for a quick set. I can stay in Hawaii 3 months if I want. I'm quitting. And Musashi Mano said, you know, I can go home and carry rocks again. I'm staying, man. I like it. We all got to choose our lot in life. And so the three boys made, you know, 3 different choices. Chad went back into mixed martial art a little bit and the professional wrestling stuff to make some more money. And just, you know, he likes scrapping and stuff. And Konishi said, no, I want to be an entertainer. And Musashi Mano said, no, I'm good. I like sumo. And he's one of the great Yokozuna Oyakatas. He really just takes care of it. When you walk into that stable, it's family, man. Instead of asking the kids, where's your Oyakata, you almost say, where's daddy? You know, because that's how they look at him. And the wife is the mommy. I mean, you know, Okami-san's basically everybody's mommy in the stable, the lady, the Oyakata's wife, but they take it to the ultimate degree. They aloha that whole concept. So
yes.
Yeah. Okay, I rambled on. I'm sorry.
It's all good.
It's always
this was an honor. It was so much fun.
It's an honor with you guys.
We still have many more we have to do with you. We gotta keep all of this stories.
You better not wait too long.
But man, this was fun.
Thank you for watching, everyone. Thank you, John. Thank
Aloha.
you, JJ.
Aloha, gang.
Aloha.
Shaka.